He said, I choked that bitch.
Put her in her trunk.
He got back in the car and ran her over until she looked like spaghetti.
Melissa Martinez, Christine Melton, and Diane Ruiz. 3 women who shared one thing in common. Each of them had an encounter with a man at different times between October 6th and 7th, 2019. Encounters that would not only change the course of their own lives, but unravel a series of shocking incidents that would be the topic of discussion for years to come. What unfolded became one of the most chilling stories of a predator on the loose, with a trail of terror that left investigators scrambling to put together the pieces. Luckily for Melissa, she lived to tell the tale. But for Diane and Christine, their stories ended in tragedy. In this episode, we dive deep into the story of Wade Wilson, the Deadpool killer, unraveling his motives, extraordinary events that led to and occurred during his manhunt, and the aftermath, starting with his encounter with Melissa. Melissa and Wade Wilson started dating sometime around June 2019. One fateful evening on October 6th, 2019, unaware of the shocking incident that awaited her, Melissa agreed to go hang out and have fun at Buddha Live, an entertainment hub and nightclub located in Fort Myers, Florida. After some time at the bar, Wade wanted them to go to another guy's house, but Melissa did not agree to go with them, noting she didn't know the man. Wade decided to leave, and even though Melissa was not in agreement, she went off in Melissa's Dodge Hellcat with another person driving the car. With no other option, Melissa's friend Amy picked her up from the bar, and they went to Amy's house. To Melissa, the rest of the night appeared to have proceeded normally, and she could not have guessed what shock she was about to witness. On the morning of the next day, she checked her phone, only to find an unfamiliar number trying to reach her multiple times. When she picked up the phone, it was Wade who was screaming at her to come see him immediately. Luckily for her, and perhaps having considered Wade's history of abuse, she agreed to meet at a public location, her place of business. She also enlisted her friend Amy to accompany her. To her surprise, Wade arrived in a different car, and her Dodge Hellcat was nowhere in sight. That was more indication of the chaos that was about to unfold, which she quickly noticed. But she wouldn't be spared. According to Melissa's statement in court, she walks to the strange car to demand her car keys and the location of her car. But Wade just keeps telling her calmly to get in the car. When she refuses to enter the car, Wade goes on to show his true colors. He started pulling Melissa, trying to get her into the vehicle. At one point, he opens the car door and gets out to drag Melissa without shifting the gear to park. This made the vehicle start to move forward, grazing her legs before continuing forward to hit another white car. Wade was visibly angry now, and he started to pummel Melissa with a combination of slaps, punches, choking, etc. At intervals, he would stop beating her and try to drag her into the car, but Melissa continued to resist. People who were gathered around started putting in calls to 911, and Melissa finally escaped the assault, running into a nearby business. When officers of the Fort Myers Police Department arrived on the scene, Melissa was on hand to narrate the incident and report the assailant. But Wade had fled the scene. Unknown to everyone, Wade already perpetrated a heinous crime, and he was in search of his next victim. When Melissa followed the officer to the station, she began giving investigators all the information she had. Part of what she revealed was that the car Wade arrived at the scene in was a black Nissan Versa, and that he had been calling her with a strange number. Officers would later discover that the car and number belonged to 35-year-old waitress Christine Ann Melton. When police arrived at Christine's home in Cape Coral, they met officers from the Cape Coral Police Department already at the location. What they found was a gruesome scene perpetrated by a man with a twisted mind. Christine Melton had visited the same Buddha Live bar the day before with her friend, Stephanie Sailors. At the bar, the two friends met Wade, who introduced another friend, Jason, to them. When the club was closing, Wade, Christine, Sailors, and Jason left the bar for Jason's house. After some hours at Jason's house, they decided to change location, and this time, they proceeded to Christine's house. Sailors left some time later, leaving only Wade and Christine at the house. After Christine dozed off, Wade strangled her in her sleep before taking off with her car. When officers noticed her vehicle missing, they suspected foul play and intensified their investigation into Christine's death and her missing vehicle. Late on October 7, 2019, Officer Tim McCormick of Fort Myers Police Department spotted a vehicle matching the description of Wade Wilson and Christine's missing car. He immediately called for backup and proceeded to ask Wade some questions. Wade lies that he was waiting for his girlfriend and was not willing to cooperate with the officer when he told Wade to turn off the car and step out. Instead, Wade winds up and drives off, running a stop sign in the process. Then, he drove for 6 miles until he got to Cape Coral, where he met an acquaintance, Josh. Wade asked Josh for some money so he could buy a bus ticket and get out of town. Josh declined his request, and what Wade said next shocked him. "You don't understand. I killed people last night," he said to Josh. Josh immediately dialed 911, but Wade was nowhere to be found when the police arrived. Now, both Cape Coral and Fort Myers Police Departments were collaborating to locate Wade Wilson. And then another crime comes to the knowledge of the officers. Diane Ruiz was supposed to resume her morning shift at a local lounge. But when the 43-year-old mother of two failed to show up, the community reported her missing. During the search for Diane, they found her purse on a path, and there were reports of a black Nissan Versa driving in the same area. Wade Wilson was now in hiding, evading capture by police officers. He broke into a house belonging to a married couple who left town that morning. From there, he called his biological father, Stephen Testaseca, and confirmed the fear. Wade had killed Diane Ruiz. He confirmed to his dad that he killed 2 people and went on to say he did some bad things. Stephen did not believe his son immediately because, according to him, Wade was a good storyteller. Stephen noted that Wade showed no remorse when he was recounting his atrocities. Wade would later call his dad again, and that was when he gave more details into the gruesome murder of both women. He revealed he met Christine at a bar, and they hung out for a while at her house, where she fell asleep. Then, Wade got on her and choked her. He remained at Christine's house for a while before attempting to put the body in her trunk, but he couldn't, as the body had gotten stiff. He took her car and left. The next morning when Wade met Diane, he asked her for directions, and Diane got into the car to help him out. Suddenly, he reached over to Diane and choked her. Wade proceeded to dump the body somewhere, but Diane was still breathing. Determined to end the innocent woman's life, he got back into the car and ran her over a couple times until she was unrecognizable. Her body would later be found in a field 4 days later. Wade's dad, Steve, admitted during testimony that he felt conflicted about reporting his son to law enforcement agencies. Eventually, he thought about what he would do if the victims were his wife, mom, sister, or daughter. He added that he was also concerned about Wade hurting another person, so he decided to call 911. But there was still the hard work of getting Wade to reveal his location. Stephen came up with an idea to tell Wade he was going to send him a ride. Unsuspecting that his time was over, he quickly gave up the address with the hope of escaping. Armed with the location of his son, Stephen reported everything to the police, who gave the information to the U.S. Marshal Service and the Regional Fugitive Task Force. The agencies quickly stormed the house, and after some minutes of ordering Wade to surrender, He opened the front door and submitted himself without further resistance. They transported Wade to the Lee County Jail after booking him at the Cape Coral Police Department. On October 15, 2019, news spread that Wade had called his ex-girlfriend Melissa the day before, confessing that he killed Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz. According to Melissa, he said he strangled both women because he just felt like it. He also added that he was on drugs and it messed him up. Some weeks after Wade's arrest, the Florida State Attorney's Office, in collaboration with Cape Coral Police Department, announced the indictment of Wade Wilson for the murder of 35-year-old Christine Melton and 43-year-old Diane Ruiz. And Wade appeared before the court via remote video for the charges the next day. During the various hearings in the case, we got a background into Wade Wilson's birth and growing up. His mother conceived him when she was about 14 years old, with his father being a year older. Since both parents would not be able to raise him, he was adopted by Candy and Steve Wilson, who knew Wade's mother's parents from church and had 2 other children. When Wade turned 18, he connected with his biological father, who often sent him money. While he was kept without bail, Wade went through a transformation as he added several tattoos to his face, including Nazi symbols. The defense, fearing that tattoos could lead to prejudice, pleaded with the judge to allow makeup to cover the tattoos. Even though the request was granted, Wade did not agree to use makeup. During the trial, witnesses testified that Wade confessed to killing the victims. In June 2014, the jury passed on their verdict, finding Wade Wilson guilty of the first-degree murders of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz, as well as grand theft, battery, and burglary of a dwelling. On the 27th of August 2014, Judge Nicholas Thompson sentenced Wade to death. He is currently on death row, and his attorneys have filed an appeal that will be overseen by the Florida Supreme Court. The story of Wade Wilson will send chills down spines for a long time. It shows the extent to which some people can go to carry out evil plans. But more importantly, that the law would always catch up with them. We hope you've learned something from this episode. Until the next time we bring you another story, do take care.